Hello, everyone. Welcome to join our session about unicorn's royal VC love story. So I'm thrilled to have Alex to join us today to unpack the unusual love story between Redpanda and its VC investors. Thank you, Alex, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start with the big news. We know that Redpanda last month just finished its Series D and has hit the $1 billion unicorn valuation. So first off, how does that feel?
Yeah. I think as a founder, you always feel this tremendous responsibility for the people that have committed their careers to the companies. And so I think I just feel that more strongly, right? People have left effectively the world's best companies, whether it's Google or Meta or other of those companies, and they've committed their careers to me. So I feel this responsibility to make sure that we continue to be successful and continue the momentum.
Yeah, but off beyond the headlines, so what does this moment mean for the company?
So we grew up really, I guess, by means of introduction, I grew up as an engineer, principal engineer. I had sold the company before to Akamai. And so really the company started from this deeply technical roots of trying to build a real-time system for effectively sampling the web, right? And so today, for example, we protect whitehouse.gov through Akamai security. We power 2 of the top 5 banks in the world. We power all of the electric car companies in the US. And so I just wanted to build a system that I wish existed. That's kind of how the company started. And then what the Series D has allowed us to do is to lean in how our users are leveraging Redpanda to power really large-scale agentic systems. And so, but my lens, it's worth caveating that it's really with the global Fortune 2000. And so they tend to have more complicated setups, more complicated security, very detailed governance, very detailed policies. And so, yeah, Series D is to lean into this world where we think we could be at the center of helping the global Fortune 2000 shift into this era of autonomy.
That's ambitious. So with this new funding, can you tell us what's the specific priorities for the company at this moment?
So I bought a company last year. We've done 3 acquisitions. First, we bought a UI company that allowed users to interact with this very low-level storage system. The second acquisition, the one that I did last year, was around connectivity. So it turns out that the long pole for people to get actual value out of this large-scale data systems was connectivity. How do I get a bunch of data in, and how do I get a bunch of data out to partners or whatever? And so what this funding in particular it is like, how do we wrap this 300 connectors in a way that agents can access private data, right? And so the intuition here is twofold. One, private data is the next frontier for models. So the assumption is that all of the public foundation models have consumed all of the public available data. And then the next frontier is private data. And so the funding is being used to accelerate how do we unlock access of data for these agents. And so in particular, when a customer deploys this in their infrastructure, it's like, how do they unlock Oracle and Postgres and MySQL and MongoDB and internal wikis and code repositories so that these agents can actually do something useful?
OK, so probably let's rewind a little bit to talk more about the Redpanda. So probably our audience want to know more about the company. So as I know, Redpanda starts something that you as a developer want to solve some kind of issues, and then it grows into a company what it is today. So can you tell us about more about this journey?
Yeah, I guess for perhaps people in the audience that are engineers that want to become a CEO, that's kind of my journey. And gosh, it came with just deciding why not me? I mean, so the previous company I was the CTO, and that was a ton of fun. And then I also wrote the code for what became Redpanda. Because as an engineer, it's very freeing. You don't have to ask anyone for permission. You open up your laptop, and then you build the system that you wish existed. So we did that. And then over time, right before we took the first round of financing, it was just sort of a decision that this time I wanted to be the CEO, and why not me? Why can't I learn how to run a company? And then it was really about expectation setting with we only have 2 investors, and I'm sure we're going to talk about this later. And so it was just like, if you invest in the company, you're also invested in me and in my growth path to hopefully one day become a public company CEO from being an engineer, right? And so that level setting and that expectation has been super helpful in just aligning the board in the ways that they help me, right? Whether it's with mentorship, opportunities, or introducing me to like public figures or coaches or whatever it is to help me become a CEO away from, I guess, as opposed to becoming a better engineer writing
Yeah,
code.
yeah. I think that's very valuable to our audience, like the engineer in this room. Many of them are maybe on this journey to try to become a CEO, and they want to know what's this pivot moment for them, right? So let's talk about the investors.
Okay.
Yeah, we know that Redpanda has done something quite rare in today's VC world. It has only two. It has the two like VC backers from the beginning, from Seed to Series D. It's kind of like the long-term relationship. It's rarely seen in the VC world. So can you tell us that? What did you do to approach them in the first place, and how you make them stay the course over the years?
Yeah, right. So we've been working with the same investors for 6 years
Yeah.
now. And like part of it, so the way that we got introduced was actually through a customers, and I actually see some partners are in the audience and some friends too, which is great to see. So we had a really large financial company, a bank actually in Silicon Valley. They were using Redpanda to power some trading. And then that person eventually introduced me to Arif and at Lightspeed and Dave Municello at Google Ventures. And so they were like, hey, this is already being used. By the way, I wasn't even fundraising. I was just building a system that I wish existed. So that was first. That's how we got introduced. It was really through users. And then when they decided to invest, that's when I had the opportunity to level set. And before I took any funding, it was sort of a family decision. You kind of talked it out with my wife. I was like, hey, if we're going to take funding, this is a long-term career commitment. And that just comes with me only valuing long-term relationships as a person. So I suppose as a CEO or human, I have a smaller set of relationships that span, decades. And so anyway, so when I was recruiting investors, we were lucky, one, and we had the opportunity to partner with effectively most of the top, tier 1 funds in the world.
Yeah.
But the deciding factor of which individual out of these tier 1 firms did we want to partner with were the people that were invested in having this long-term relationship, both with the company and then with me, hopefully becoming one day a public company CEO. And so it was largely about level setting. What's been fun is they've actually followed through with hundreds of millions of dollars, right? So today we've raised almost $300 million. And it's the same two people. And so it's a really high trust, really functional board. And I know that there are many companies that don't have that luxury of having people that are detractors actually to the execution of the company. But yeah, I feel lucky. So I guess in summary, it was about level setting expectations with them from the beginning.
But I just want to know that in your 6-year relationship with the board, so is this how this relationship has evolved? Probably it's at the beginning it's like a more transactional, and then it's become more strategic. So can you walk us through that journey?
Yeah, so it's been really fun. So at first I was, like I mentioned, an engineer. I wrote the original code and a storage engine for Redpanda, and frankly, in the beginning, I asked them to leave me alone. So I think they invested $30 million at first. And I was like, OK, I'll talk to you in 12 months. And they're like, no, we should have board meetings. And I was like, but why would we have board meetings when I don't have a product to so there's no progress. It's a better use of time if you leave me alone so I can actually go code the thing that I said I was going to go build. So that was the seed stage / Series A. We started seeing some adoption. And then as the company grew, we started being really strategic in the data landscape. And so as an example, the first system that touches data before it makes its way into a lakehouse like Databricks or Snowflake tends to be Redpanda. And so let's use the example of autonomous vehicles, right? All of the autonomous vehicles data lands in Redpanda first before it gets processed and transformed in downstream systems. And so we've had the opportunity to acquire many companies And so what I've learned from them is like, how do you evaluate a company from the point of view of a VC too, right? It's like, okay, here's a company, here's a group of developers that are really talented, that are working on this. Are the technologies complementary? As an engineer, it's not like you get to do M&A all the time, right? Mostly, even if you are brought into this process, you're brought in from a technical diligence point of view. So that's one. Two, it's I think learning to focus on like smaller set of problems, so kind of shifting the company and focusing on just one or two things that actually move the needle. And then third, it's really at every stage of the company we've had different challenges, right? And we've had the opportunities to up-level management in many ways, right? So if you look at my management team, it continues to get better over time. People with more experience, people that have had more success. And so it's like, when is the right time to make an executive change? And so yeah, so I guess as the company has grown, we've had the opportunity to partner with them in different ways. And we're lucky that each of them have had like 12 IPOs on one hand and 14 IPOs on the other hand. So they've seen the movie so many times. They're like, at this time, it's useful for you to consider this is a good time to upgrade your CRO, or this is a good time to upgrade your whatever marketing person. And so those actually have this deep strategic and long-lasting impacts in the trajectory of the company.
That's good. I remember in our call before this event, you compared that the relationship between startups and their investors as marriage, right? It's like long-term marriage, but it will be a process that each side will adapt to each other's changes. So relationship, even the good ones, will have frictions, right? Yeah. So can you share with us some of the were there any moments for disagreements or clashes between you and your board, and how you navigate that moment and maintain the mutual trust?
You, actually, most board meetings are not, because it's a high trust environment. It's not like regular investor relationships where it's them telling you how smart you are, or how smart the team is, so that they get a chance to put more money into the company. That sort of on the side. And so for us, the most board meetings, there is actually tension. And actually, by design, I recruited two very different people. So Muni is very like focused on product, and Arif, great person. And Arif is very focused on like the metrics of the company, how do you build an efficient business. And then I have one independent. His name is Simon Parmet, who used to be the CEO for MuleSoft. He's like more of an operator and a strategic. So actually, most board meetings, there is a real sense of tension. So I particularly enjoyed that. My goal is like, how do I make Redpanda better? I don't really care for someone to tell my team that they're smart and they're bright. Largely, they already know this, right? They're already making a bunch of money. They're here, they're hired. I think the world of them. And so the focus of most board meetings is not about, hey, this is how great Redpanda is. In fact, it's the opposite. It's like, here's all this stuff that isn't working. This is whatever. This is the problem with pipelining in Asia, or this is like, growth challenges, or this is competition. And so sometimes it feels to me that the majority of the time that, as I'm running the company, it's just focused on the problems as opposed to on like the wins. And so anyways, that's something for me to improve. So going back to your question, most calls, most meetings are actually full of friction, yeah. But it's the right kind of friction. And so I really appreciate that, but it only comes because I trust them. And then one thing that is important is I value how discerning they are with time. And so if they say something, my expectation of them is that they only say something if it's actually useful. Otherwise, like, don't say it. I don't care about needs. I care about like real hard feedback. Otherwise, like, not interested in that. And so anyways, I guess most meetings are full of friction.
Yeah, it is. So, but we see climate is also changing, right? It's evolving. So now with the current VC world, we are seeing that more quick cycles and more capital in play. Do you think under current market conditions, is it easier or harder for companies to build this kind of like a long-term relationship like what you have?
Yeah, in many ways, we got lucky in some ways. And so I think starting today, how would I orient the audience? I guess I would orient the audience on personality fit and really the human. So if you're, first of all, you have to be at a place where you can attract the attention of the tier 1 firms. That's useful. And most tier 1 firms are helpful as long as you manage the relationship well. The next thing that matters is this the human that I want to partner with for the next 10 years? And for me, indexing on the quality of the human that is going to be with me for the next 10 years was one of the most critical things. And I guess third, if I were to give any advice, people that have to prove themselves out, people that are earlier in their careers in VC firms, they are pretty anxious in general. So we have observers, they're not board members, and you can see them react differently because they're going to get paid if we do well or whatever. Whereas if you manage to find a long-term partnership with one of the, like, Muni runs all of GV, not just the infrastructure, but actually all of it. So whatever $50 billion worth of fund. And so he's had personal success. He's had, a dozen of IPOs, including Slack and other pretty big profile companies. And same thing with Arif. And so they're less anxious. They've seen companies both like succeed and struggle and everything in between. And that matters. I think as a CEO, there's a lot that's always going wrong. There's a lot to celebrate, and here we are powering some of the world's largest businesses, and I feel really proud of that. But at the same time, there's a lot of things that continue to be a challenge as most growing companies. And so if you can manage to find someone that isn't anxious, that has seen when things go wrong, that's what I would orient people to try and find this long-term relationship.
Yeah, I'd say that Redpanda's rise coincident with the increase in investment in AI infrastructures, right? But now there's more players in the ground, and there's more capital flood in. It also means more competition. So what does that mean for Redpanda?
Yeah, when I started the company, there was our main competitor was sort of the darling of Silicon Valley. I remember I had my first call when I landed in San Francisco. Someone said, "Hey, this idea is stupid, and instead you should figure out how to partner with this other company." And I walked out because I was like, I don't have to ask you for permission. Like, I'm an engineer. I could just build it myself. Yeah. And I don't need you to tell me anything about this. And so I just had this deep conviction that look, the world is going to be different. Batch is a historical artifact. And the way of the future is not this. Imagine asking a model at noon for a question and then getting a response at midnight in an email. That just seems absurd in the way in the world that's working. So there was that intuition for me. And so anyways, when we became successful in many ways, we showed the way for the next wave of companies to say, oh, look, there's actually a bunch of money to be made here. You should follow Redpanda's path. And so I think competition is healthy. And so the only way that we get to compete is we try to hire the world's best talent. Okay. And that's probably the only secret weapon that we have, is that we really over-index on hiring phenomenal people. And so that's the only reason I have. We're going to compete. Competition is going to come because there are real challenges. There's a bunch of money to be made here. And so the only thing that I could do is move really fast and hire really bright people.
Let's talk about some about the future plans. I know that Redpanda now is like shifting toward agentic AI and enterprise infrastructures. So can you tell us more about that direction?
So last year we bought this connectivity company. It came with about 200 connectors, and then over the course of 12 months we added another 100, and we're going to add another 100 this year. And so this massive connectivity portfolio. And so what I'm about to share is not something that I invented. It was our customers, which again tends to be the global Fortune 2000. They were already doing it. And so the only thing that I'm doing now is packaging what they're already doing in production and then sharing that story with the world, which is there are really three core challenges with enterprise agents. And again, so one is connectivity. Two is like ultra fine-grained permissions. And three is private data is the next frontier for foundation models. And so those are the next three challenges that we're working on right now.
OK, great. We'd like to see Redpanda's success in the new areas. Thank you. Thanks, Alex, for joining us and share the insights. Thanks, everyone, for being here.
Thank you. Yeah. Appreciate it. Thanks, everyone.